he did. No, that's fine.
Well,
In
doesn't
fact,
it go
I might
fast?
have tricked you because I was going to say something. So that's probably what you thought. I was just going to point you out to the third verse where it says, "My love demands a thankful heart." And I know that when I was in my 20s, 30s, and even my teens, it may not have shown on the outside, but I was kind of a negative person. My happiness often depended on how other people treated me and if they did what I wanted them to do, kind of thing. And as I got older, I had children, and I realized that's not quite how life goes. and so I tried to change the way of my thinking. And there's a study out, I'm sure you're aware of, where they say that when you repeat things, it becomes grooves in your brain. And you can change the way of your thinking or change the grooves in your brain by rethinking your thoughts and doing them repetitively. And so by having a grateful heart every day and starting to really think about the things that God has done for you, you can change your whole attitude, which actually did happen for me. And I'm so grateful. So, when it says, "Thy love demands a thankful heart, the gift, alas, how poor," that is so true of us. But it's not too late to change those grooves if you haven't yet. So, something to think about. If you'll turn in your hymnals to hymnal number 88. 88. I sing the mighty power of God. Look all around you. It's everywhere. Number 88. I sing the mighty power of God that made the mountains rise, that spread the flowing seas abroad and built the lofty skies. I sing the wisdom that ordained the sun to rule the day. The moon shines full at his command, and all the stars obey. I sing the goodness of the Lord that filled the earth with food. He formed the creatures with his word and then pronounced them good. Lord, how thy wonders are displayed where'er I turn my eye. If I survey the ground I tread, or gaze upon the sky, there's not a plant or flower below, but makes thy glories known. And clouds arise and tempests blow by order of thy throne. Creatures that borrow life from thee are subject to thy care. There's not a place where we can flee, but God is present there. Amen. All right, turn in your hymnals to number 100. 100. Just 100, 100. Yes, great is thy faithfulness. Great is thy faithfulness, O God. get some water. This song from 100, Great is Thy Faithfulness, is so important. It's really easy to get so full of anxiety and or stressed. And I remember that last year, 3 weeks before school started, I was told that I was going to be team teaching third grade and being vice principal. And I thought, no way. There's just no way I could do that. And I was just so stressed, and the room wasn't even ready, and we didn't have the books, and so we were trying to run around that last 3 weeks. My team teacher and I, who was also an admin, and we're just, we would talk to each other like, oh my goodness, we just can't do this, I'm like, God, what is this? Why are you doing this? This is just so stressful. Are you serious? And this happens all the time to me. If you've been where I've shared my story, every time I say it's not possible, that's when God specifically does things to show me that it's possible, usually work-related. and I have to tell you, this was like one of the best years of my life. I can't tell you how wonderful it was to teach third grade. Never taught it before in my life, well, except 20 years ago. That doesn't count. And so everything was brand new, and it was so fun. And the kids were known as being the wildest bunch of all the classrooms from grades 1 through 7. And there was a lot of them in there. And they're loud and they're boisterous and they talk. And we couldn't get them to be quiet, but they were the funnest bunch. And I loved the hugs that they gave every day. And it was a tough year because my mom passed away. And we had some health issues in my immediate family that are with us to stay, but the kids, every day I went to school, they gave me new life and energy, and God knew exactly what he was doing. Here I thought it was going to be a stress maker, and it actually was a stress reducer, working with them. So God is faithful, and he knows if we're just willing to walk his path is always going to be for our best, even if it doesn't feel like it is. Great is his faithfulness. Next song is hymn number 185, Jesus is all the world to me. Jesus is all the world to me, 185. Jesus is all the world to me, my life, my joy, my all. He is my strength from day to day. Without him I would fall. if you will join me for our opening song and stand with me, it will be hymn number 6, Oh, Worship the Lord, hymn number 6. And if you'll stand with me, please. Thank you. In the beauty of holiness, bow down before him, his glory proclaim. With gold of obedience and incense of lowliness, kneel and adore him, the Lord is his name. Low at his feet, lay thy burden of carefulness. Thank you so much. You may be seated.
Thank you, Stephanie, for that wonderful song service. Special day. I'm not even going to give opening prayer. I'm going to turn everything over to our guests, Gary and Toni Lewis. It's all theirs. Good morning and happy Sabbath. Good morning. It is awesome to be back in Chula Vista again. It's been a long time. And it's good to see so many faces that I haven't seen in a long time. But God is good all the time. And it's neat to be able to serve the Lord. We've been out in P&G now 3.5 years. And we've been as volunteers for 10 years already. I don't know where time has gone, but it's slipping away very, very fast. But I also believe that God is coming back very quick. It's amazing. I haven't been back now for 2 years. And to see what I have seen and to hear what I have heard in the last month that we've been stateside, it reminds me of the frog that's in the pot of hot water that's getting hotter and hotter and hotter. The people here don't seem to realize what's happening. But having been out in the bush for 2 years and coming back, the temperature has gone up dramatically in that pot that everybody's in. And I'm just afraid so many people here aren't aware that it's happening. Because the frog that's been out comes back in, jumps in the water, jumps right back out because it's too hot. But those that have been in it all the time just kind of, oh yeah, it's getting warm, it feels good, relaxing, and pretty soon you become supper for whosever table you get put on. But being out for so long and coming back, I see dramatic changes. I keep hearing stories from deep people, and they say, oh, haven't you heard? Did you know? No. You can't be serious. That's really happening? You're really doing that? That's being allowed now? And it's like, wow. Can't believe it, in 2 years' time. So if you guys are getting too warm and comfortable in the hot water, come on out to the bush. It's cooler out there. But it's good to be back. Tomorrow we leave. We go across the pond tomorrow, through Manila, back on down to P&G. Next Sabbath, we'll be out in the bush, worshiping with our families out there in the jungle. Nobody out there calls it jungle. It's just a word that you Americans use up here in this country for whatever reason, I don't know. But nobody else in the world calls it jungle. It's all called the bush. And I know you say, oh, that's a pilot term. No, it's not a pilot term. It's everybody's term. It's the bush. So when I refer to the bush, I'm not talking about these little things that grow around your house. We're talking about tall stuff that is very dense and is very different than your forest here. There's Toni. We have our traditional dress down there that's the only one we could wear that would not get us arrested this morning. The other things that people wear down there traditionally, we'd probably be arrested for before we got into the church. So we tried to find something that would hopefully not get things too exciting. And I've tried to censor my pictures so that we don't offend your sensitive eyes in this country, because we've heard about this political correctness, everybody has to be whatever. But out there, the culture is very, very different. Things that you guys allow here would offend them, and stuff that they do there would probably offend you. And coming back after 2 years, it's been a little bit of reverse culture shock, sensory overload. You guys have nice music to sing with this morning. Down there, everything is a cappella, and they not only sing parts, but they sing different tunes at the same time. It's great. You have these nice new pews here that are soft. Man, you almost fall asleep on them. Our pews down there, we don't have that problem very often because it's just a board, a couple posts under the end of it, and you fall asleep there, you're going to fall on the ground. It's very simple. It keeps you awake. But you guys are in the land of luxury. But then again, I think some of the luxury is to your detriment. You have this cold air here. It's cold. Where I come from, we don't get cold. We get cold if it's down to 72 degrees. It's cold. Most of the time, we're in the daytime, we're around the mid-80s to mid-90s with a humidity of about 150%. I know that's not supposed to be technically the right term, but it feels like 150% all the time, every day. And at night, if we're lucky, it'll cool down to mid-70s. So you can actually sleep without swimming in your bed from the sweat. Where we live, there's no electricity, there's no running water, there's no TV, there's no radio, there's no internet. And phone only comes on the last 3 months. We haven't had any before that. The last 3 months we've had it, it comes on about mid-morning to about mid-afternoon. If it's not a cloudy, rainy day, which is most of the days. And we'll get phone service for just a little bit of time. If we stand just right and do the right dance, we can get phone service. This little bag here is what we call a B-loom. Everybody has one there. Different sizes, different colors, different lengths. Man, woman, child, doesn't matter. Everybody has one. Most of them are carried on their heads so that their hands are free. They'll carry like this and load these things up with whatever it is they're trying to haul. I haven't mastered that too well, so I just carry it on my shoulder. But everybody has one of these every day. That's just one of the things you wear with you is your B-loom. You don't have to carry purses. You don't have to carry wallets. You carry a B-loom. P&G, as you can see on the map there, is just above Australia. On the other side of the world, we are located where the little pink teardrop is. That's where we're actually located, right next to the border with West Papua, or if you're Indonesian, you would say Irian, because West Papua is under the control of Indonesia, whereas our side has had independence now for 41 years from Australia, thanks to the people in the UN who thought it was very politically correct to give them their independence, even though they really weren't ready for it, and the people there will tell you that. But the UN, in their wisdom, decided they needed independence, and so Australia gave them, and it hasn't been the most, what can I say? It hasn't been the most helpful that it probably would have been if the Australians had stayed a little bit longer and trained a few more people in leadership. But they're trying. Some progress is being made in some areas, and so we do the best we can. But we are located there. You can see the teardrop is inland just a little bit. It's 30 miles by road. I use that word loosely. You don't have any roads here like our road. It's 30 miles. It takes us an hour and a half to 2 hours, driving as fast as we dare drive to go 30 miles. Extremely rough. It's a logging road. And the logging trucks on there make your logging trucks here look like wimps. Yours are toy trucks. These are monster trucks with monster logs and super long. And they just destroy the road, and they go out and they grade it, and they destroy it again. It's just a constant thing. But it does allow us to be able to get to town with the vehicle instead of walking. And 30-mile walk is a pretty good walk for one day. But that's what they did before. Fortunately, the Lord has provided us a vehicle, and that's a story in itself, how God has blessed beyond measure. Oh, it's neat to see my Pathfinder's coming back. That's good. Welcome, welcome. But I'm just going to show you a few pictures this morning. I'll try to keep an eye on that clock because it keeps moving for some reason. I hope the battery dies on it soon. That's a picture of our flag, slight resemblance to my shirt and my wife's dress this morning. That's the bird of paradise on it, which is our national bird. If you've ever seen any pictures of the bird of paradise, they are awesome birds. Our closest town where there are shops and stores and any kind of commerce of any kind is Vanimo. That's a picture of it. It's on the coast. They even have a paved airstrip, which is very rare in the country. So I can land there. But there's probably 6,000 or 7,000 people that live in the little town. Their biggest store probably has less items than your local 7-Eleven. That's the biggest store. There's 2 or 3 stores in town, little shops. Not much variety. Quality is, well, it's kind of disposable. You use it once and throw it away. You pay dearly for it, but it doesn't hold up. I think it's all the stuff they can't send to this country, they send it there. But we have an open air market for buying your fresh stuff. So when it rains, it's a muddy open air market. When it doesn't rain, it's hot. Beetle nut is our biggest curse there. And if we took the beetle nut out of the open air market, we'd probably have maybe a fourth of the market left, because that's the main thing they sell there. But that's where we go to get our fresh stuff when it's available. It's not always available. But for vegetables, we get what we call a yard-long bean. It's about this long. It's a green bean. It grows about 3 feet long. That's our vegetable. We can also get what you would call winter squash here. We call it pumpkin there. We can get that in season. For a salad, we get either cucumbers or cabbage. That's salad. There's no such thing as lettuce. Tomatoes are imported from the highlands rarely. Carrots come in rarely. But most of it is cabbage and cucumbers, which are good, but that's all you have. You can get some pasta, sort of, kind of. It's called ramen noodles. That's the most prevalent. We get rice. Cannot buy beans. Fortunately, we took beans with us, so we have beans to get for protein. And my wife is good at making gluten. So that's about the extent of our diet. We've been packing on the pounds in the last 4 weeks here so that we have some furlough fat to go back with, so we have something to lose when we go back. Otherwise, we would be in trouble. We have beautiful beaches. When we go to town, this is our house in the bush. When we arrived, they said we could have this house. At that time, it had a roof and 4 walls. No stairs, no paint. Inside had been gutted out years ago, left abandoned. And so church members from town went out and helped us, and we salvaged it, built some stairs, and put some screen on the windows that have no glass. We have louvered windows because we don't want to stop the air. See, unfortunately, you people here have windows and close all the outside air off. You don't even let the butterflies and birds into church. I don't understand. You guys don't know what you're missing. It's cool to have butterflies floating through church or a bird come flying through during church. It keeps everybody awake. You see, you guys, you close everything off, then you have this air you keep recirculating. We get to look out and see the trees, which I noticed were gone this morning. I can't believe all your trees are gone. It must be an environmental thing where you guys don't want to go green anymore. It's go desert. Is that it? Anyway, I did notice that this morning. But this is our little house that God has provided. It's 20 by 20 feet, which means it's about the size of a standard 2-car garage. But it does an awesome job for us. It's 12 feet up in the air, and here's the reason, one of the reasons why. Because when it rains, we live in a swamp, and so it becomes a lake. And it gets a little more air when we're up on top, keeps some of the creepy crawlies out. Of course, we still have ants, but the ants are awesome there. We have ants that you can hardly see, up to ants that are nearly an inch long. We have all varieties, colors, and sizes, but they're great cleaners. If you kill a bug or an insect in the house with a fly swatter or step on it or whatever you do, the ants will clean it up. If you drop crumbs on the floor, the ants will clean it up for you, and there's no charge because everything just kind of moves. You can watch this stuff move across the floor. It's really cool. Of course, then we have the neat ones that are geckos. Anybody know what a gecko is? They kind of look like a lizard, but they're smaller. Well, they live on the inside of the house too, and they help eat the bugs. So they're on the ceilings, on the walls. They're quite entertaining, but they leave their droppings everywhere. Minor details. This was a video, but due to computer technicality problems, you can't hear it, but he beats on that hollowed out log to call people to church. He's standing there at the front of the church. He's doing that in the morning about 9 o'clock. In a few minutes, everybody coming out of the bush, coming to church. They don't have bells and whistles and alarm clocks. They just use that. Here's the inside of one of our more affluent churches. We actually have benches. It's pretty cool. Notice the floor covering there is very natural. It's not even smooth. You have to watch where you step or you might embarrass yourself laying on the ground. But we have no windows. It's wide open so the birds and the butterflies can come through, and the air. We like air movement there because it's so hot and so humid. The tin roofs are great because when it pours down rain, you can't hear nobody. Kids Sabbath School is outside. We don't have any most of them do not have lamb shelters. So we meet under the palm tree or the coconut tree or the mango tree or no tree and sit on whatever they can sit on and tell the Bible stories. Here's a student missionary that came down last year. She was down there for 6 months and helped us out. We have 17 different, I think you call them companies in this country. We call them hand churches. They're not organized yet, but their groups meeting. We have 17 that we currently visit in our district. We go around to different ones. Some of them are within 10 minutes of drive. Other times we have to drive a couple hours to get to them. But the work is going forward, and we're just go church to church trying to help, trying to give them a little bit of encouragement, give them some ideas on how to teach Sabbath School, how to run their church services so that they can be more successful. Now, for those of you who are technically inclined, this is modern day theater in the bush. You see the car battery there at the bottom, 12-volt car battery. Right next to it's a little inverter that turns it to 120 volts. The black box behind the computer there is our projector. And we have a screen we'll hang on a side of a house or on the front of a truck or whatever we can find, which is basically a white sheet. And then on our laptop, we have our videos. We have any of you ever heard of the video Jesus video? Anybody aware of the Jesus video? It's based on the book of Luke. We use that because we got it translated into Pidgin, which is the more or less common language there. And so we show the Jesus video. We get requests to go to village after village after village because they don't get to see pictures. They don't get to see videos like y'all do here. It's a novelty. So we're going to give them a novelty. We're going to give them something good. So we show the Jesus video. We also have some health videos that we show that are in Pidgin. But the ones they really like, you probably aren't familiar with them, but they're put out by Amazing Facts called Final Events and the Cosmic Conflict. Oh, they love those. It's in English, but they love it because it's got action. Things are happening. And they just think that is so cool. So we get request after request. Please come show picture. Please come show picture to our village. And so we go out Sabbath afternoons, Sabbath evenings, sometimes during the week with our car battery and our projector and share the story of Jesus. And you see there's only a few people. That's because we just got set up. But typically, by the time that picture started, got dark enough to show the picture, we had about 150 there. Our typical crowds in a village will be anywhere from 100 to 300 people come to watch the videos. The local people there prefer, instead of flannels, because flannels take more effort, and the bugs tend to like to eat them, they prefer picture rolls. They love the picture rolls. And I know some of you in here are old enough to remember what a picture roll is. Some of you probably don't have a clue what a picture roll is, but they love them in the bush for telling the Bible stories. Because a picture, the memory verse, the text, to find the story, and they'll go out there and they love to tell the Bible stories with picture rolls, and the kids think it's exciting. They even like stickers. When the white man comes with stickers after Sabbath school, they love stickers. Sometimes we're not able to drive to church because it's too remote and the roads are too poor, so we walk. And when you're carrying a 12-volt battery and all the rest of the stuff and Sabbath school stuff, it gets heavy, so we put it in a wheelbarrow and we push our wheelbarrow to church. And sometimes we get some hitchhikers to go along with us, but we're on our way to Sabbath school there. It was about an hour and a half walk, not too bad from the end of the road. Just remember, it's hot and it's humid. Here's my wife teaching Sabbath school to a couple kids, giving them a lesson that she's good at. She learned that in Pathfinders, I think. But more picture rolls out in the bush. Knows there's nothing to sit on here. You sit on the ground. Not a problem. Here's one of our lay missionaries with the striped shirt on there, translating for Toni and our student missionary the story of creation. Lots and lots of kids, but you must understand that infant mortality is about 40% by the age of 5. That's really high when you stop and think about 4 out of 10 kids are dead before they see 5 years of age. So everybody down there has lots of kids. Most women will have 6 to 10 kids each, and polygamy is very common. Here's one of our lay workers teaching Sabbath school. Sometimes they'll meet under a house because it's a little bit cooler under there with the shade. Here's a school not too far from us with an Adventist teacher. She had almost 30 students. She had 6 desks, and the desks are smaller than this pulpit, about half the size. 6 desks. The rest of them sit on the floor. No visual aids, so we gave her a set of flannels to be able to tell the stories a little bit better. Not quite like the academy over here that I remember a few years ago, where you have all kinds of neat things. There we're down to the basics. And it's okay there for the students to bring their bush knives to school. I know they're very restrictive at San Diego. They don't allow that for whatever reason. I guess the teachers are paranoid. But everybody brings a bush knife, which you would call a machete in this country, but they're about 3 feet long. And kids from about 3 years on up have a bush knife, and that's just part of your attire. You bring a bush knife. Doesn't matter whether you're going to school, church, down the road, whatever, you always have your bush knife. So one of these days you're going to have to loosen up over here at the academy and let the kids bring a knife to school. I mean, big deal. We do it down there. In fact, it's this particular school. Not only they bring their knives, but the teacher brings a rifle, which is very uncommon. There's very few guns. But at the door was a rifle laying there by the door. Nobody's watching it. It just sits there. I don't know what they use it for. Probably don't have any ammunition for it, but it looks interesting for those of us with PC eyes, Anybody tell me what those are? What is that? Huh? There you go, offering plates. You see, we are advanced. We have a left and a right, so we know which side the offering came from. No problem. Nice big bag hangs down. When you pick it up, there's a bag hanging under them. But everybody's got their hand out, right, for offering. But at least you can tell where the offering came from. It's very good, very handy. There's another face I recognize. Good to see you. Pathfinders are alive and well down there. Master guides all the way down. This is what we're really there for, the baptisms. Bringing souls to the kingdom. We don't have one of these tanks in church with hot water. I don't know why you use hot water. We don't even have hot water. There's no such thing as hot water. And my granddaughter got baptized a couple weeks ago. We were there up in Utah, and the elder was talking about, yeah, the water's nice and warm this morning, so that'll be good. I said, what do you want warm water for? I said, you guys didn't fish all the fish and the leeches out, did you? Oh, yeah, we wouldn't put that in the tank. I said, make it interesting. You know, you guys use a sterile stuff, and you just don't get it. You're missing out on so much. So we do it out in the river, the ponds, or whatever we can find. When we got there, we started asking around as we went around to these different companies and churches how many baptisms they were having. They hadn't had a baptism in our district, which is very large, in the previous 8 years. Not one baptism. 17 companies, 4 organized churches. Nothing. And I said, how can this be? Well, we all have a baptismal class, which they call a ready class. We all have those, but we just haven't got them baptized yet. So well, how long do you have to stay in a ready class before you can be baptized? Well, they weren't sure. Well, how long have these people been in it? Well, 4 or 5 years. 4 or 5 years in baptismal class and you can't get baptized yet? Yeah, what's wrong with that? I said, there's lots wrong with that. You're not having church growth. Oh. So anyway, in God's time, in God's way, we were delayed in going, but right 2 months after we got there, a new pastor came into our district. And he had been there before because that's his home. He had gone off on other assignments to other missions and had come back for his last couple of years before retirement because he wanted to retire in his home district. So I sat down with him and had a little conversation. I said, what's the deal? Why aren't you doing baptisms? And he says, well, that's a good question. It needs to happen. So we had this little discussion. He agreed that if I could get him around a little bit, that he would do that. Because, see, the pastors there don't have wheels. They don't even have bicycles, let alone a vehicle. So they have to walk. And when it takes me an hour and a half to 2 hours in a car, how long do you think it takes to walk? But that's how they get around. I said, I'll take you around if you do the baptism, because I can't do that. But I'll be your support. So we started going around, getting people ready. In the last 2 years, he's baptized over 100 people. God is good. And many of those people have been in baptismal class for years. And I keep telling them, we need to shorten that time. How about if we did in baptismal class for a quarter? We come around every quarter and do a baptism. They're like, wow, that's really fast. I said, well, show me an example in the Bible where you have to be in it for 3 or 4 years. What about Philip? What about some of the other ones? Wow, never thought about that. That's the way we've always done it. I said, well, it's time to change. We want church growth. So change is coming, but it's slow. But we're making progress. And we're just praise the Lord for the 100+ souls in the last 2 years. But aren't those awesome baptismal tanks? That's even cool. You come out, you might find a leech or two on you. You see the fish? That's all right. There's no worries. But one thing you probably didn't notice here, but the deacons or the deaconesses go in the water with the candidate, and they make sure they don't fall till they get to the pastor. He dunks them, and then they help them back out because the ground, whatever you call it here, the floor of the tank is not smooth like yours. It's rough, and they have holes in it. We don't want to embarrass them, so we make sure at least 2 go together so they don't fall down and go under get prematurely baptized. We also get to go out to our logging companies. Our jungle is being logged by the Asians. They come in there and they're cutting the jungle all down, exporting the logs, and then they're leveling what's left and planting oil palm so that they can produce palm oil. I don't know if you guys have palm oil in this country yet, but it's very common down there for cooking oil, for gasoline, for kerosene, all kinds of products that they're making out of the oil palm. So they're planting it by thousands of square miles of oil palm. But they even let us come out to their logging camps, ask us to come out and show the Jesus video. So here we are with all the equipment around. People sit on the ground. There's our screen on top of or in front of a logging truck. And about 300 people came to watch this presentation of the Jesus video. Here we are in a village doing the same thing on the front of a house. But as soon as they find out the white man's come with picture, as they would call a video, everybody comes. We go to all the schools. Here they jam into a room a little bit, probably more crowded than they do at San Diego, because there's not enough chairs. We just sit on the floor. But doing health videos in Pidgin. They think it's great. And then if they want, we come back and we do the Jesus video, and everybody's thrilled. Even though it's a public school, not a problem. One of the things that we do down there is medevacs. We take patients to the hospital in town if it's a life-threatening situation. If they're just injured in our clinic, there can fix them. That's as far as they go. But if they're on their deathbed, unless they get to town, then we transport them because there's nobody else to do it. This is our car. It's called a 10-seater Land Cruiser, made by Toyota. They don't bring them to this country because they're too tough. They would never wear out. They are one tough machine. And this machine God provided for us. It's a miracle in itself. But we fold the seats up, or we can lay the seats down either way and put a patient or two in the back. Here's a young lady going back, or getting ready to go to town. Most big cuts, whether it be from the bush knives or other things, they just bring them in, squirt some iodine on it, and sew it up. They don't even clean it. You walk out with the mud and the blood and the dirt like you came in, except you now have a sewed up thing. They don't believe in wound care like y'all do here. In fact, it's so cool there that the nurses, when they come in the morning to the clinic, they put on their plastic gloves like you do here, but they don't take them off until the end of the day. Saves money. You guys are so wasteful. I can't believe you change it for every patient. But anyway, my wife does a lot of wound care at our house because they seem to like her method a little better than they do down at the clinic. So she gets a lot of stuff, but sores down there are, infections are rampant thanks to the hot, humid environment. A little mosquito bite can turn into something like this in a matter of days. So they come to her to get treatment. This is something you probably don't see much here in San Diego yet. At least I hope you don't. Anybody know what that is? Huh? Elephantitis, yeah. This guy's about in his 20s. It is non-reversible. He'll live with that for the rest of his life. They do have medication to stop it from progressing, but he'll always have those swollen legs. Now, it affects other parts of the body too, but I didn't bring pictures of that because I'd probably get thrown out. But anyway, if you want to research it, you can research it on your own. Very ugly disease. Another problem we have down there, we don't have a lot of wildlife because anything that moves, runs, swims, crawls, is good stuff for the dinner table because it's protein. And so anywhere where there's many people around, there's not much else wildlife because it's already been eaten. But we do have a problem with wild pigs. And these wild pigs have a tusk about so long on each side. And they are very territorial, and you get into their territory, or if they decide they like your garden better than you, they'll stand and fight for it. So a lot of our patients that we take to town are victims of fighting with pigs. And the people don't usually come out on the better side of it. It's really ugly. This young lady was chopped up the backs of her legs with a bush knife from her brother because she was doing things that he didn't approve of. So he went and chopped the back of her legs, and she'll never walk straight again. She's on crutches now for the rest of her life. Nothing happened to him, of course. Life is a little bit violent down there. They go from 0 to 100 in anger in about a third of a second. It can be everything's calm right now, and the next second, man, they're ready to go to the death over it. This is another victim of the pig bites. You notice his right leg is twice the size of his left leg, and that's because he has elephantitis in that particular leg. This gal was shot by a gun. We have very few guns there, but once in a while somebody gets shot by one. You notice we have the seats rolled up and a little mattress on the floor because the road is so rough going to town that if they lay just on the floorboard, which they would in any other vehicle, it's really, really rough. And even with our vehicle, it's still, you get a lot of moaning and groaning and screaming because it's rough. We take a lot of pregnancies into town that they can't deliver, and Toni's even delivered a couple of them in the back of the car, especially in the middle of the night with a little headlamp. It's great. It works. Other ones, well, I better not tell you too much. It sounds kind of gory. But they are, trust me. And I'm not a medical person. Here we are in town at the hospital bringing a patient in on the gurney into the ER. These gurneys, typically when we put a patient on it, we'll already have dry blood and dry dirt and whatever else on the gurney when we slide the next patient right on top and roll them in. A little different concept of hygiene. Another pig bite victim here. This one is a young boy who was brought to us. He's about 8 to 10 years old. He was swimming with his friends and landed on a fishing spear that somebody apparently left in the water. That spear is about this long, and it was hard to steal, so I couldn't cut it. I couldn't pull it out because it's into his lung already, coughing up blood. So he had to ride in the back of our bouncy car for almost 2 hours to get to town with this thing bobbing out here and the other end inside the lung, just, you think about it, yeah. He was really pretty good about it. He didn't cry too much, but there was a few times we hit a big bump and he would let out a yell, which I can't blame him for. Since I'm not the medical person, I'm only the taxi driver, I get to do, when we go do mobile clinics, I get to weigh the children so that they can figure out whether their growth rate is too far behind or on target and how much medicine to give them. They're all underweight, I'll guarantee that right now. That's a no given. But I get to weigh them so they have a little idea. They can track it a little bit. Malaria is our number one health issue there. They come in, the first thing the health worker will ask them, do you have hot skin and headache? Hot skin meaning fever, right? You understand that. Pidgin's very easy to understand if you know bad English. So they tell me. So if you have hot skin and you have a headache, they test you for malaria. Here's my wife. They do a pin prick now and put a drop of solution on it with a drop of blood, and you wait 15 minutes and the bars will come and tell you which of the 3 strains you have or if you don't have it. I was lucky. We've been there 3.5 years. I've only had it once. Toni's not had it yet. God is so good. Everybody there gets it 3 to 4 or 5 times a year. We've been 3.5 years, and I've only had it once. So God is very good. It's not a fun disease if you haven't had it. While the patients are waiting to go see the health worker, I sit out on the porch with my laptop and I show videos. Jesus video, Final Crisis, all that good stuff. And I usually have an audience plus patients. Everybody else comes in to see it. So that's my little way of witnessing while they're in there giving them shots and other ugly things. If you'll notice the lady there, the elderly lady, I don't know how old she is. She's probably younger than I am. But she has no toes. I don't know if you can see that there clearly, but that's because she's had leprosy. Here's my wife. The kids all scream when they see my wife coming. Bloody murder. I don't know if it's because she's got a syringe in her hand or what, but they all scream. And it's not for ice cream either. They're screaming. But you have to understand they've told the kids that when somebody dies in the village, they will come back as a white ghost. And so when a white person shows up, which is me and my wife, guess what? The little kids think, uh-oh, who's this coming back? But after we've been there a little while, most of them now don't scream unless they see her come with a syringe, and then they get excited. But we cannot do anything in our area without being observed. We are the only white people in the whole district, the whole region. And wherever we go, it's hi, Captain Gary, and one time Mrs. Everybody knows who we are. We don't know who they are, but they know. We drive down the road out through the bush, and there'll be all these naked kids out there. Hi, Captain Gary. Hi, Captain Gary. How many of you have a naked fan club? So my wife gets to do suturing and all kinds of stuff that she was not allowed to do in this country. She gets more experience out there. Skin diseases there are rampant. There's almost no one that doesn't have some kind of a skin problem. This is a young kid here, but it's on young and old, doesn't matter. All kinds of scaly issues. It's not very comfortable. Not much they can do for it. How'd you like feet like those? You won't need pedicures. And again, leprosy. Victim of leprosy. They can stop the disease, cannot reverse it. But it's a big problem in the bush. Here's my wife and Julie out visiting a patient out in the bush under her house. And here we are loading up a person to take to town who wasn't doing too well, hoping to get him to town before he expired. This was a pig bite. You can tell by all the bandages he was attacked by a pig. Nobody cooks there on stoves like y'all do here because we don't have electricity, don't have propane. In fact, speaking of propane, you know these little bottles you get, these little 10-gallon propane bottles you get for camping and doing your barbecues and stuff? What do you all pay for that here now? I know it's expensive in this state, but how much do you pay for a 10-gallon bottle of propane? 20 bucks? 15 bucks? Yeah, we pay 85 in town, if you can get it. Because my wife likes to cook with gas instead of the campfire stuff. We've done our camping days, and down there everybody cooks with a wood fire, campfire every day. So if those of you like to camp, come on down. You can cook your food every day on a campfire. But when you have campfires and little kids running around, sometimes this is what happens. Burns. Here's a picture of our air base out in the bush. Like I say, we're 30 miles from town. This was an airstrip that they provided for us. It hadn't been landed on or flown on for over almost 30 years. We cleaned it up and filled in the ruts and chopped the 8-foot grass down. That's our airstrip. The little red spot there in the middle there is our hangar that we took from the U.S. and built down there. Along that airstrip there is the school, which is grades 1 to 8. And just above it, at the top part there on the right-hand side, is the clinic. That clinic serves about 10,000 people in the bush. They have about 6 or 8 nurses. There is no running water. They just got in some solar lights so they can have a little light at night when a patient comes in. It's helpful when it's a delivery or something to have a little bit of light to see what's going on. But that's just recent. But there's no running water. They finally hooked up. There's a water tank outside where you can open a spigot and fill a bucket. But that's it. Here's another picture of our hangar and our air base. We had to fence it in to keep stuff from walking or getting messed around with. Here's how we get our fuel. All comes in 55-gallon drums. That's diesel, gasoline, and avgas. We just order the different drums. Comes up from the lower part of the country by ship. Very expensive. Your gas here is almost a freebie. Gasoline, diesel runs between $6.50 and $7 a gallon. Avgas is $11 a gallon. And we only burn 12 gallons an hour. So you figure it out. So we load it in the back of our car when we're not hauling patients, haul the drums of fuel up to our air base. Sometimes we haul medicines out. We haul them out to remote villages. So we get boxes and boxes of medicines, and we take our fuel, and then we take it out to remote areas where they have small clinics. Here's our airplane in our hangar. It's a Cessna 182 for those of you that know anything about aviation. It's technically a 4-seater. We've modified it so we can fold up the seats and lay a patient or two down in the back. Here's some lazy white people just standing around making pictures with their dog. Here we are getting ready for a flight to go out to pick up a patient that's a little over an hour flight away, that if they had come in by boat, it would probably taken them 3 days at best and probably wouldn't have survived. But because we had the airplane, we're able to get them to medical help in a couple of hours. Taking off from our airstrip, going on God's errands. Here's our airstrip with our shadow encircled with a rainbow over our airbase. We always have prayer with our patients before and afterwards because we only fly with God. Otherwise, it's way too risky. Here we're flying a pastor and a couple lay workers out. I was out in one of the villages with the airplane picking up a patient, delivering medicines, and one of the health workers came up and he said, Captain, you're Adventist, right? And I said, yeah. He says, do you know that there's an Adventist church here? And I said, no, I had no idea. Nobody's ever told us that you have an Adventist church way out here in this village in the bush. I said, tell me about it. He said, well, no pastor has come to visit or missionary has come to visit in the last 25 years. Do you suppose you could find somebody to come out? I says, I will find my pastor, and we will be back. I promise. So I went back, got my pastor. That's him in the front seat with me. I said, Pastor, we got a new job for you. we're going out in the bush. I said, you can go out there, or people have been out there a long time waiting. He says, I was out there about 25 years ago. I said, well, you were the last one. Nobody has been brave enough to go back since. He said, well, I'll be happy to go back. So I took him out with a couple lay workers. They had meetings for a week. At the end of the week, they baptized about 15 or 20 people. They were excited that finally a pastor had come. And while he was there, they found out that there was another village 9 hours walk away in the same situation. So when I came back, he said, could you fly us over there? Because there's an airstrip that's only 3 hours walk away, and it only takes you 7 minutes to fly there. I said, well, I think I could manage a 7-minute flight to save you 6 hours of walking. So we did. He went over there, and they had more baptisms. Between the two, I think they had like 25 baptisms. Had not seen a pastor in 25 years. We're changing those things. Sometimes patients don't make it, so we have to fly the body back to the village. You see our fold-up seats there so we can lay a patient, or in this case, a body in it, and fly them back out. After the pastor held his meetings out there, we flew him out some Sabbath School supplies to this remote village who hadn't seen a pastor in 25 years. No Sabbath School supplies, no nothing. So we flew him out Sabbath School supplies, Bibles, a couple songbooks, and they're just thrilled that somebody realized they were still there. I asked the people at the mission what the deal was. He says, oh yeah, we remember that some long time ago, but we never knew what happened to them. I said, well, duh, nobody went out to check on them. Here's a stabbing victim, or I think he was a spear. They don't use much for guns because they're too expensive, too hard to come by. So everybody uses spears and bows and arrows. I should have brought mine, but it's up in Sacramento. I brought one back. They're about 2 meters tall, the bow, and the arrows are about that long, and the spearheads are about that long on the end of it. And I asked one of the guys, says, well, what distance could you actually kill a man with these? Because they do that. It's called the land of headhunters and cannibals, still. And he said, about 100 yards, I can kill a man with his bow and arrow, with a spear. This guy got hit, but he survived. Here we're taking out a doctor and a couple dentists out to a remote village. Sometimes it's easier to haul the medical people out than to haul all the patients in. So we hauled them out for a day, and they did clinic, and then we bring them back. You can always tell the people who get a government paycheck, whether it be as a teacher or a health worker or a government employee or a health worker, you can always tell them from the people in the bush. It's very simple. They have a crowd, I can pick them out. Boom, 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 boom. 2 ways. By their dress and by their weight. Those who get paychecks are a little bit heavier. Those who don't are very thin and poorly dressed. Here's a load of medicines going out to remote clinics. And if we don't fly them out, they don't get them. Flying out tanks of propane for their coolers to keep the vaccines cool until they get them all distributed. We fly a lot of vaccines out trying to cut down on the amount of sicknesses. Here we're flying 3 kids in with their parents to see an eye doctor. They had an epidemic of something that was causing major eye issues, so we were flying them in. Like I said, it's a 4-seater, but, who's counting? When the little kids, it's legal to strap them in with the parent. Another patient going in is a pregnancy problem. Pastor is going to meetings. Sometimes things don't go so well in the bush, and we have to get a flat mechanic in to help us. This is the one we bent the firewall, which is why the plane hasn't been flying for a while. We got it out of the bush. It's now in the shop and getting fixed. Working on it at night. Costumes there are a little bit different, as I said. For Independence Day and other times, different tribes have different costumes they wear. In our country, there's 800 dialects. On our side of the border, there's 800 different ones on the other side, about 1,700 on the whole island. But our side, we claim 800. And each one has their dialect and their tradition, and they call them a one talk or a one tribe. And they're very protective of that. These here, the mud men, those are mud masks made out of mud, and they weigh about 75 pounds. Some are white, some have dark mud. They cover their whole body with the mud, and then they wear these masks so you can't see who they are. But they look pretty ferocious when they come at you with a spear. The women have their dress. They dressed up pretty good for this, so they didn't show too much. Out in the bush, they don't worry about things like that. Notice this headdress there in the middle, the long one. I don't see too many minors in here this morning, but for those of you that are interested, those are penis gourds, if you've ever heard of those. A lot of painting with mud or different kinds of stuff they put on for paint. Grass skirts. Headdresses made out of feathers. Those are those bee looms I was telling you about. See, everybody's got a bee loom. They wear them on the front there, but normally they don't. Feathers from the bird of paradise. Grass skirts and tops. These are paddles for their canoes, their dugouts. The women do the heavy work there. Here she's calling in firewood to do her cook with. She'll haul her garden stuff sometimes 2 or 3 miles from her garden to her house to cook for her family. And then usually, this one, I don't know what the deal is, but usually they'll have a load like that, then they'll have a kid on another piece of cloth wrapped around their neck, nursing it while they're walking down the road, and then 2 or 3 more as they go down the road. And if there's a man around, he'll be carrying the bush knife and walking ahead with a dog or 2, maybe an older kid. But she gets to carry the load. Musical instruments are basically non-existent there of any kind. It's rare we'll find a guitar. This one I think has some of its strings missing, but these kids somehow found one somewhere and they were having fun making noise from a guitar. They're going to be musicians someday. Wildlife there is a little bit different than here, if you can find it. Get away from the people and then you can find the stuff. Awesome birds. This here's the bird of paradise. It's our national bird. That's our wild pigeon. Wild pigeons there stand about this tall. You can see them a little better here in this next picture. But they say they taste really good. Anybody know what that is? Huh? Cassowary. This is a young one chick, and they're going to keep it in the village and raise it till it gets big enough to have something they can feed everybody at one time, or whoever gets to it first. But typically, if they find a young cassowary or a young deer, they will try to raise it up so there's a little more meat on it before they put it on the table. The bugs are also big. That happens to be on the inside of the house, by the way. He's only about that long. But what's really cool there is the spiders. The spiders that get in our house, we've got it screened in pretty good because we keep out most of the stuff, but the spiders that get in, they get up to about 4 inches on the inside of the house, but they are extremely fast. I've never seen anything move as fast as these spiders do. Even cockroaches can't keep up. But you go after them with a swipe swatter, and it's almost impossible. They jump around the corner, up the wall, and around the corner, and the other side, and you're running around this little house trying to catch them. And when you do get them, they go splat. But the ants clean it up, so it's not a problem. Outside, they tend to get bigger. We have some that hang out downstairs, and they're about the size of a 10-inch dinner plate. We've measured it because everybody says, oh, it's a fish story. They're not this big, but about the size of a dinner plate, 10 inches. Nice-sized spiders. And the webs are huge. But what's really cool is the butterflies. I only get more of the simple butterflies because that's all I can catch on camera. The really pretty ones are way too fast for a camera. But here, you see, you can go to church and butterflies come in and land on your feet or on your hand. You don't do that here in Chula Vista. I don't understand. If you guys would just take those windows out and open up the walls, you could have the beauty. We even have a few snakes, not like we did in South America with as many deadly ones. We have a few deadly ones, but not like Guyana, which is nice. We don't take very many people in for snake bites. Here's those lazy missionaries again, just relaxing in the cool water, because that's all we have is cool water. We don't have hot water, no such thing. Here we are back of the church getting ready for church service. When they have a special meeting, they all make these leis out of flowers. Everybody gets a lei. I guess they learned that from Hawaii or something. Anybody tell me what that is? Oh, come on, people. I know you eat it all. It's rice. They take the fronds of the palm and they weave them together and make kind of a diamond-shaped box out of them, put a few grains in it, and then put it in boiling water, and voila, you have your rice. And you don't need utensils there because everybody eats with your fingers. God made them first. You don't need utensils. Here's ladies, after every 13th Sabbath, they have the Lord's Supper. And after that, they have potluck. And so here's the ladies getting ready for potluck after church. Notice the fine flooring there, and put it down, and they spread out all these pans. divvy up the food, and everybody gets a pan. What do those pans look like? Remind you of anything? They're foot washing bins. And we just had foot washing, so now we can use them again for putting everybody's lunch in. You don't have to have paper plates. You don't have silverware. It's double use. Double your money, right? You just don't get it up here. You guys are so worried about stuff you can't see. But you see they've got some little rice bundles there, the little ones, the woven things I told you. And they have white bread with maybe some canned fish or tuna in it or canned beans. There are some crackers there, or we call them biscuits. They're about 3 inches square. Typically they'll have sago palm, which they make into sack. That's their favorite dish there. They take the sago palm, cut it down. It grows in the swamp, which we live in the swamp. Cut it down, take off the bark on the upper half of it, lengthwise. And then they have a stick that's kind of a triangle thing with a little piece of pipe on the end of it. And they'll sit there and chop up the insides of this palm tree, which is very fibrous, and make it look like sawdust. They just sit there and hammer away at it, skinning off a little bit at a time until they get this sawdust. Then they take the sawdust and put it in the big frond from the palm tree and rinse it. And on the end, they'll put a piece of old cloth or their shirt from yesterday and rinse and rinse and rinse and rinse this sawdust until it comes out clear, sort of, kind of. Then it sits in basins that they make out of the palm tree as well. At the bottom will settle a sediment, very fine silt. They drain the water off. That silt now is like a flour, a very, very fine flour. They'll put it in a bag, let it drain, let it kind of just dry out. Take that home, and that's called sago flour. Take it home, scoop it out, however much they want for a meal. Cook it up in some water, boiling water. It becomes a gelatinous mass. If they have some fish or other pieces of meat, they'll put in there for flavoring. Then they wrap it up in a banana leaf, and you have now sack to eat. And it has the consistency, if you put it in your palm of your hand, it wiggles a little bit like it would a uncooked chicken breast. You know, just a little bit of wiggle to it. About that color, but it tastes horrible. But they think it's awesome. So that's fine. We let them eat it, and we find other things to eat. Everybody to his own, right? My wife's dress that she has on is called a Mary blouse. Very common type of dress there. But out in the bush, people don't have much to get for clothes. And one of the church where I went to, I told you about, where they hadn't had a pastor in 25 years, and they knew the pastor was coming. He said, you know, more women would come if they felt like they could present themselves in church a little bit better. And so I went to the church in town, and I asked a couple ladies at the, what do you call it, women's ministries, or whatever you call their thing here. Huh? Yeah, that's the old term, but you have new fancy terms for it now, but you get the idea. They said, if you provide the material, we'll sew them up. So my wife and I went to the store and bought up all their remnants, gave it to them, and 3 days later they had 17 Mary blouses ready for us to take out to the bush. The women out there were excited. They could go to church now when the pastor came. There's one of them she's holding up. All made from remnants. The gals made them up really fast, really cool. Most of the land I fly over is very flat, so the rivers wind and round and round and round. It takes days to go where I can go in a few minutes with the airplane. There's another view of it. The rest of it's just jungle. It looks like broccoli when you're flying over it. Those little white puffs are the cauliflower, so I get my veggies every day. I fly over the broccoli and I fly in the cauliflower. Transportation there is basically non-existent other than your feet. Whole villages, there's no vehicle at all, period. Nobody. Here you all have 2 or 3 per house, which I don't understand. You cut down on your parking lot size if you all just walk to church like they do. But they'll catch a ride on a dump truck or in the back of a pickup, and they'll load in, a dump truck like that, they'll have 100 people in there easily. A small pickup, they'll put 20, 25 in. The back of my car, they like to put 20. I restrict it to about a dozen. I'm not supposed to have that many, but, you have to compromise somewhere. And they still think I'm very, very stingy because I don't let them put in as many people as they would like. But I say, you know what? I'm interested in a little bit of safety. There's a typical hut. They're all off the ground like ours. This one has thatch, of course. made out of bamboo and palm trees and other native stuff. These guys here, a little more ingenuity. They went up 2 stories above the ground, the first floor. But I don't know. I don't think I'd want to stay in those because we get a lot of earthquakes. We're on the Pacific Rim. We get a lot of shaking. Our house shakes pretty good at 12 feet. You can imagine what those are like, and most of those don't even have nails to hold them together. So they shake and bake a little bit. Most of the villages are kept very clean. They kind of build them in a square or in a circle, and everything in between is kept bare, dirt, and they keep it clean. Even though the kids run around with nothing, there's no such thing as diapers, of course, but they keep it cleaned up, and it's really amazing. When you walk through the bush, there are a lot of ravines and streams and gullies, so if you're brave, you just take your load and keep right on walking across the tree. Then there's the white man who doesn't carry much of a load across the tree because he's afraid he's going to fall off. And then there's some that are afraid to even walk across the log, so they walk through the stream. We have we've been training our lay workers out there. We had about 30 come to our classes because we've discovered, like others have, that those who can reach the people best are people from there because they know the language, they know the culture, they understand what's going on. So we've been trying to help local people in the church go reach unreached villages. So we give them a little bit of training. We send them out with some materials, give them a small stipend, and a picture roll. They also get a God pod. For those of you who want to know what pigeon really sounds like, here's what pigeon sounds like. Tell me if you understand it.
They belong God. All something Gori woke him, now all something Gori talk him. Emi saw him, Mari belong God. Papa belong you belong heaven, Emi asked through belong life. Save na belong.
See, that's not hard to understand, right? Nothing to it, just bad English. This is a God pod. It's an MP3 player. On this God pod is the entire Bible in audio, like you just heard, in Pidgin. Steps of Christ is on here. Bible studies are on here, and programs for children. All that's on this. Half of the people where we live cannot read and write. So how are they going to read the Bible? With this. This is how they hear God's word, for those who cannot read and write. So we've been giving these to those who have issues of reading and writing, and it's gone over very well. People really like them. Yes, ma'am. Oh, yeah. Since we don't have power out there, it comes with a solar power on the back, a speaker on this side with the controls, and it's loud enough that you can sit in a small room and everybody in the room can hear it just fine. And when it gets low on battery, just set it where it can get sunlight. When you're walking down the path or in the bush, put a string on it right here, hang it around your neck. It's charging and you're listening to God talk to you. And it's kind of cool. You walk into a village out in the bush and you hear this thing going in somebody's little house. Or you get some people and you pick them up in the car and somebody will have it on and going. How many of you get to do that in this country? Huh? Do you get to walk into a town and hear God's word being spoken out loud? Or in your car? See, you're not as modern as you thought you were. You just think you are. Here's Toni explaining to a lady here how to do this. She can't read. Nobody knows how old she is because they don't have calendars there. So they really don't know how old they are. This is one of our young pastors in town. I gave him 4 or 5 of them to help in his ministry since he has contact to people that I don't have contact with. The roads there, as I say, are very rough. The picture doesn't really show it there, but those ruts are anywhere from 18 inches to 2 feet deep. And, you know, if you don't have a tough machine, you're not going to get through. But God has provided the machine to do it. Sometimes the roads are covered with grass, and you have to guess at what's under them. And when you can't do that, you walk if it's too muddy. Because you can't call AAA or the towing company to pull you out when you get stuck. You're stuck, you've got to figure out how to get yourself out of stuck. Bush knives come in handy. Here we're going out to do some meetings out in the bush. The road didn't go far enough, so we did our Pathfinder lashings with vines and bamboo, strapped on the generator, and away we go. And I didn't even have to teach them how to do it. They already know how to do all that stuff. It's cool. Good use for lashings. Here's a church in the bush. This is one of the better off ones. It actually has a tin roof on it. It's run by one of our lay workers. Another lay worker built this one. This is dedication day for the church to open it up. All made out of native material except for the tin. Here they are getting all ready for the big day. Another church in the bush. This one has the thatch roof. Now, this one was built by one of our lay workers. What's different about this church? Huh? What's different about it? Nope. It has flowers. And the reason for that is because a woman built it. She's our lay missionary standing right there. She built the church and she built herself a house out in the bush. She has elephantitis on one foot. It's very swollen. She's a widow. And where I can drive, she has to walk 2 hours from the end of the road to get to the village that she's in. When we went out to visit her, this is how you have to get there. Just before you get to her village, you have to cross the river. So, it's not a problem. You get to church, you're wet. Everybody's wet. You can see how deep it was there by where the mark is on my wife. But by the time church is over, it's sort of kind of dried out because you're sweating as well. And then you get to go back through the river to hike home again. That's great. You all come all dressed up here and all dry. I don't understand. You just don't experience the Sabbath experience. And I didn't see any wheelbarrows. I was looking for a wheelbarrow. I said, who might have brought their wheelbarrow to church this morning? Didn't find any. When we don't have a church built and our lay works are just getting started, they use a tarp for their church until they get a church built. One of our lake workers, again, in an unreached village. Lots of people come. And now he's built a church there this year. Not quite finished yet. Again, more baptisms. That's what we're after. Reaching souls for the kingdom. I mean, it's one thing to help the sick and all the other stuff, but the reality is the most important thing is souls for the kingdom. And that's why we're there. Trying to tell people. Because, the reality is, folks, you can amass all the stuff you want. There's only one thing you can take with you to the kingdom, and that's people that you've shared Jesus Christ with. The rest of it's going to burn. I'm sorry. It's all going to burn. The only thing you can take is your friends that you shared Jesus Christ with, and that's what we're trying to do out there. We're volunteers. We don't get paid. God takes care of it all. I don't even do the fundraising. That's God's department. And in 10 years, he hasn't come up short. Sometimes he waits to the last minute, but he never comes up short. There is always enough. I can tell you stories from now till 12 o'clock of how God has provided. But I see that clock. Oh, no. I'm sorry. I've got 1 minute left. Or we're going to go really fast. Really fast. You want to know how to get weevils out of your flour and your pasta? It's very simple. Put it in a white container, set it in the sun, and all the weevils will bail. There's proof right there. Then it's safe to eat again. The ruts are deep, but when God provides the cart, we go on God's errands. It gets kind of dirty sometimes, so we go to the local car wash, which is the river, and you splash it on, and you wipe it off, and you splash it off. Works really good. Until you get back on the road, then it gets all dirty again. Here's the palm oil they're starting. Local fisherman in his dugout on the ocean. The roads are rough, even for the logging trucks. Some of them don't do so well. Here's a hunting party with their bows and arrows. You hope they're smiling when they find you on the bush and not too hungry or upset because you might become lunch. Here's our contact information if you would like stories. Now, if you're already getting our emails, do not sign up again. If you would like to get them, because you're not getting them, there's a sign-up sheet right out there by the guest book. Please write your name and your email very legibly, because if it's not legible, you'll never get it. But we send out an email about once a month. If you would like stories direct from the bush, and you're not getting them, put your name out there and you will get them. But I'm here to tell you, God is faithful. We have proved it beyond the shadow of a doubt. God knows what problems you're going to face today. He knows what problems you're facing tomorrow and next month. He's already got it covered. Don't stress. I stress, unfortunately. But I have seen God provide. One quick, can I get one short story in? I'm sorry. But we had, our plane, like I said, is getting fixed. We bought the first set of parts, about $8,000 worth, got the parts down there. They took the plane all apart to fix it and discovered it needed more parts. The mechanic came back to the States, ordered them. He said it's going to cost you over $5,500 and counting. And I said, wow, that kind of bites. The next day I had to go to town for a medevac. I picked up the email while I was there, and I found a note from a friend in Arizona. She said, my husband died 2 weeks ago. I know the family. I've known them for years. They're a very, very poor family. They just kind of exist and get along. She said, my husband died 2 weeks ago from cancer. But she said, just before, 2 days before he died, his mother's home sold. And because it sold before he died, he got the inheritance from it. If it happened after he died, she said that we would have got nothing. She says, I have already gone to the attorney to file for bankruptcy because I don't know how to pay his bills and all our other bills. She says, I have no means of income. She said, we were already making plans. As soon as he died, file for bankruptcy. But because the house sold 2 days before he died, he got the inheritance from the house. She says, I was able to pay off all his medical. I paid off my car. She says, I have enough money to fix the floor in my kitchen, and the rest we sent to you 4 days ago. It was only the day before I learned I had this huge bill. She says, do you have any big bills coming? I said, yeah, we just got this plane bill yesterday. She said, well, 4 days ago, she says, I sent you a check for $6,000. Is God good or what? You see, before we knew, God had already solved the problem and provided for it. She was crying on there. She says, I'm just crying. She says, tears running down my face. She says, I can't believe what's just happened, what you've just told me. She says, my kids haven't been in church for years. She says, you wait till I tell them this story. She says, this is God sent. She says, I didn't know. But God said, she said, before my husband died, we decided that we were going to send you this check. But God knows what tomorrow holds. God knows what your need is going to be. And my Bible says, I don't know about yours, my Bible says that he will supply all of your needs according to his bank account. And that bank account hasn't run dry yet, folks. If you don't believe it, try it. Now, it doesn't say all your wants. There's a big difference. But if God is calling you to do something, you say, well, I can't do it because I don't have. No, that's an excuse. God says, if he calls you to it, he's going to provide what you need, and he will do that. Because my God is faithful. I have proved his promises over and over and over and over. I have seen miracles, stories from the Old Testament happen in front of my own eyes. We say, oh, those are old stories, they're old fables. No. They're still happening today. I see them. My God is alive and well. If God is calling you to do something, answer. God is faithful. And we really need some help in the bush. Really, really, really bad. Because my wife and I are getting very, very old. And we need some younger blood to come out there and really help things go faster than what they're doing. If God's calling, listen and answer. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gary, for spending your time with us. And now we want to take a mission offering also. And this isn't for a mission somewhere else. This is for Gary and Toni. The money will be gathered and will be sent to the Mission Projects Incorporated in their name. So be generous as we take up this offering. And on the envelope you can write, if you want to, Mission Projects Incorporated. But Jim is already going to take everything that's in the offering plates, and he will forward the money to Mission Projects Incorporated in the name of Gary and Toni Lewis. The deacons will pick up the offering, please. Guess I don't have a pianist to play. I'll pray when you're done. Go ahead. Come over here first. Thank you. Please be generous because you just heard this story about what God can do for those that are in need. And he knows ahead of time the needs, and he takes care of it. God is good. just incredible. These stories that Gary tells, it just makes you have goosebumps that these things can actually happen as they happen. And we're so blessed with the fact that Gary and Toni are from this church. They're our missionaries. And I do read their emails, and I worry about Gary flying into these places. But God is with him. God will protect him. And you have to worry about Toni taking care of these people that have these diseases. God is taking care of Toni. They are blessed. They have given up everything that they have to go and spread the news of Jesus. We need to remember them in our prayers, and I'm looking forward to you coming back again and giving us some additional information. Let us bow our heads. Our Father in heaven, we thank you so much for the blessings of being able to be here today to hear the story from Gary. So blessed. Your work is spreading around the world, Lord. This is just one place where this is happening. But you are in control, Lord, and the good thing is you're coming back soon. With the happenings of the world today, Scripture is being fulfilled by the hour. Again, thank you, Lord, for Gary and Toni and the work that they do, and may this offering be blessed and multiplied. Bless each one here today, Lord, I ask in thy precious name. Amen. Thank you again.